We're going to talk about risk. I'll go through it as fast as possible, make it as painless as possible, because that's why you sign a contract, to mitigate risk. There are, as I learned from my banking days, there are three primary risks: payment risk, performance risk, and legal risk. It's payment risk we're talking about, really. It's payment risk you're interested in. It's payment risk I want to focus on mainly, business to business. But the other performance risk, do you provide a good service, or do you, legal risk, do the T's and C's stack up? Of course they do. They impinge upon payments risk, as you may already know. I've only got one lawyer critique in the room, Craig, who's very sympathetic, I know, so I won't be hauled over the coals. So that's what we're looking at: risk management, risk mitigation. And there are five. I think there are five key factors in all your business contracts. No matter what you do, what service you sell, I don't think there are any product vendors in the room, but know who you're contracting with. You'd be surprised how often people don't. You're collecting personal information these days. More and more, you've got to watch that. Even if I'll touch on that a little more shortly. Privacy, defining the value exchange, goods or services for money, clear payment terms. You'd be surprised how many people don't specify when and how much they want to be paid. Limiting liability, that's when we lawyers come into our own. We roll out the boilerplate and really strap you up. So let's get going on a postscript. Things are changing so quickly. If I can, with time, I'll touch on these two things. I've done that during the year, but unfair terms, so-called, and data breach, very much flavour of the moment. Okay, identifying your customer. You really only have two customers, two kinds: a person or a company, something with LTD on the end. Your customer is not a business name with an ABN. It's thin air. That's not to say you shouldn't look for ABNs and ACNs. But there are two key entities. Limited is great. It's that word. It's a public company, not necessarily listed, so they're safe. But you've got to look for that kind of data. A physical address. I hate PO boxes. Why people accept that, I don't know. If it's a digital business, they'll have their faithful accountant providing a registered office, won't they, John? And another thing I hate is partnerships and trusts. Why? Because theoretically, every partnership sign the document that you're asking them to sign up to. Get verification that the signatory can bind everyone. If you don't, it's a risk. You're not managing your risk. And trusts, I had a conversation with John earlier. I hate them too. It comes from my banking days. If you sign up with a trust, someone's a trustee, it sounds all what we do. But you put you on notice about the trustee. What does it say? 90 times out of 100, they'll get indemnified out of the trust fund, sure, but the time you sign up to do business with a trustee, it may not. So know your customer. Touched on that before. You're collecting personal information no matter what kind of business you're in. And you've got to manage it. You've got to collect it properly, only what you need. You've got to manage it, you've got to store it and destroy it when you're finished with that customer. Even if it's, and we'll see different kinds of customers provide different kinds of information. You're all probably turnover less than 3 million in the room, but it's a good one. Sylvan's post the other day on LinkedIn reminded me of, if you're a small business like have a rent roll, or you have a gym or allied health services, you're collecting personal information. You're under 3 mil turnover, so you come under the Privacy Act, and that's being strapped up and strengthened as well with all the hubbub about data breach too. Big trend with government these days is to put fines in, threaten you with fines. If you don't get a director's number, DIN, you might get a fine. It's just over the top, but it's happening, and you've got to manage that risk. The value exchange means what you give and what they get, or vice versa. Sometimes that's imprecise. I saw one contract once where the poor fellow, he wanted to do the right thing by a purchaser of goods, and he said, well, if you want this kind of product, the price is this, but if you want all those add-ons, it'll be that. But I'll need to think about it, and I'll tell you at the time. It failed for uncertainty. You don't be helpful, just be precise is my recommendation, and of course the representations and warranties about how you're trying so hard to make a good quality service or product offering. Payment. As I say, work out when you want to get paid and how much. It can be milestones, it can be all up front or all in arrears, but be precise. A period of grace is when you give a bit of leeway, 10 days or something. Do you mind, do you care? Overdue interest, my banking acronym there, I think it's good to have those clauses in contracts because it's a bargaining chip in a worst case scenario. Your rate of never use the word penalties. Never ever have the word penalties in your contracts these days because the legal system's always hated them and more so than ever. Then you've got to work out if you provide a done product or receive a done product or service, what then? Provide it again or what have you. Security, really outside the ambit of this talk, but a financial guarantee for those $2 customers of your $2 paid up capital company customers you have, but we won't go into financial guarantees today. You can limit your liability, and you have to do this. B2B, business to business, there's more scope to do so. I think most people in the room are business to business, which is good. All you have to do is say, if you didn't do a good job, I'll do it again. Or I'll pay someone to do it, you won't be doing that. So they're really the two things that you have to say in business. And when you're in a business to business scenario, if you've got retail, if you're doing retail so-called consumers, although that definition gets wider and wider by the year, you've got to go a bit further. And the old reps and warranties that we knew and loved so well are now called consumer guarantees, but it implies a retail customer will get what they pay for. Stick to business unless you're big and know what you're doing in retail. So very quickly, the postscript. The text I've got there is not perhaps what I want to feature so much, is the penalties and fines aspect. There's $1 million fine potentially for unfair contract terms, and I bet you next year someone's going to be fined. Not $1 million, not a lot, but it's a signal to the small business lobby. I guess we're all small business, but very powerful, very persistent, and they want to see runs on the board. They want to see someone nailed to the mast. And you will see a penalty. You will see a financial penalty for an unfair term. It's like beauty, unfairness in the eye of the beholder. I don't know what an unfair term is. If you can dress up your contract a bit, it might not look so bad. But the penalty thing is coming in, and we're all sort of jumping up and down about it, we lawyers. I know we drama things a lot to hustle business. I remember a banker told me years ago when the Trade Practices Act came in 1974, that dates me, the sky was going to fall in. Why was that? Misleading and deceptive conduct, which came out of billboard advertising in the United States, was now covering every kind of transaction, not just in the US commercial world, but here. But the sky didn't fall in, but we are a lot more prudent about what we write into contracts and what we say, or should be. Data breach. I reiterate what I said the other week. There are three kinds of clauses that can protect you. Exclusion clause, capped liability and liquidated damages. And that's jargon, but it's really helpful jargon. But it gives you a protection, draws a line in the sand. It's about bargaining. It's not about going to court. I think as Elias said, shame is here. 90% of court cases that go to court, Supreme Court, settle beforehand, but you don't want to settle that. You don't want to spend the legals and the uptake. You want to have a good bargaining position. And that's what risk mitigation is about. Bargaining in dispute situations. So these are my 5 points again to reiterate. Know who your customer is. Be conscious of what personal information you're collecting. Make sure the value exchange is clear. Payment terms, you want to get paid if you're the recipient, or you don't want to pay too soon or too late if for the other side. And make sure you're limiting your liability as much as possible. Be aware of data and unfairness. So the good referrals from me are obviously all SME contracts, the terms and conditions. Most people need to run once over that now, I think, with the unfair terms coming in and smoothing the rough edges out of them. It's not hard, it's not expensive, but you should be thinking about that. High net worth individuals. I love credit and security for SMEs. Sean knows, we talk about it all the time. Contracting and employment agreements, the front end, and structuring industries, issues, companies, partnerships, shareholder agreements, so forth. So really that's a whistle-stop tour. You've all been very patient, so that's where I'll end. Thank you.